George Armstrong Custer, the boy general who never knew fear. George Armstrong Custer was the Union Army's most flamboyant and fearless cavalry commander, a man whose reckless bravery made him a legend years before his infamous death would make him a myth. Born in 1839 in New Rumley, Ohio, Custer graduated from West Point in 1861, finishing dead last in his class, a record he wore almost as a badge of honor. What he lacked in academic discipline, he made up for in raw audacity on the battlefield. Custer's rise was meteoric. By age 22, he was promoted to brigadier general, becoming one of the youngest generals in the Union Army, earning the nickname the Boy General. He led cavalry charges with a theatrical flair, wearing a custom velvet uniform and flowing golden curls that made him instantly recognizable amid the chaos of battle. At Gettysburg, his cavalry division played a crucial role repelling Jeb Stuart's attack on the Union rear, a lesser-known but pivotal moment in the battle's outcome. Custer fought relentlessly through the war's final campaigns, leading charges at Yellow Tavern, Winchester, and Appomattox Station, where his troops helped cut off Lee's retreat in the war's closing days. He was present at Appomattox Courthouse and received one of the tables used during Lee's surrender as a personal trophy, a fitting memento for a man who thrived on glory. After the war, Custer took his aggressive style west, leading campaigns against Native American tribes on the Great Plains. His story ended in 1876 at the Battle of Little Bighorn, where his entire immediate command was wiped out by combined Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho forces. Today, Custer is remembered as a paradox, a brilliant and daring Civil War cavalry commander whose fearless legend was ultimately eclipsed by the disastrous defeat that bears his name.
William S. Rosecrans, the general who won rivers and lost Chickamauga. William S. Rosecrans was a brilliant strategist whose military career swung between celebrated triumph and devastating collapse. A general capable of outmaneuvering armies, yet unable to survive one catastrophic afternoon. Born in 1819 in Little Taylor Run, Ohio, Rosecrans graduated from West Point, trained as an engineer, and briefly left the military to work in the coal and manufacturing industries before returning to service when the Civil War began. Rosecrans quickly proved himself a skilled tactician. He won early victories in Western Virginia, then took command of the Army of the Cumberland, where his Tullahoma campaign in 1863 was a masterpiece of maneuver, outflanking Confederate forces and driving them out of central Tennessee without a major pitched battle, a campaign that earned him widespread praise for its bloodless brilliance. But Rosecrans's fortunes turned violently that September at the Battle of Chickamauga. A miscommunication in his lines created a gap that Confederate General Longstreet exploited with devastating force, shattering the Union right flank and sending much of Rosecrans's army into a chaotic retreat toward Chattanooga. Only the stand of George H. Thomas, earning him the nickname the Rock of Chickamauga, prevented total disaster. Rosecrans himself was swept up in the retreat, a moment that permanently damaged his reputation. Ulysses S. Grant relieved Rosecrans of command shortly after, and he never again held a major field command, spending the rest of the war in administrative roles far from the battlefield's center stage. Today, Rosecrans is remembered as a general of contradictions, capable of the war's most elegant campaign of maneuver, yet forever defined by the single broken line at Chickamauga that ended his rise.
John Buford, the cavalryman who chose Gettysburg's battlefield before a single infantry regiment had arrived. Born in 1826 in Woodford County, Kentucky, Buford graduated from West Point and spent years in the pre-war army fighting in frontier campaigns against Native American tribes, experience that shaped his reputation as a tough, no-nonsense cavalry officer long before the Civil War began. By the summer of 1863, Buford commanded a division of Union cavalry screening the Army's advance into Pennsylvania. On June 30th, riding ahead of the main force, he arrived at the small crossroads town of Gettysburg and immediately recognized the strategic value of the high ground surrounding it, ridges and hills that would offer a commanding defensive position if the Union Army could hold them. The next morning, July 1st, 1863, Buford's dismounted cavalrymen, armed with rapid-firing breech-loading carbines, held off advancing Confederate infantry for critical hours west of town, buying time for John F. Reynolds' infantry corps to arrive and seize the high ground. Historians widely credit Buford's decision to stand and fight rather than retreat as one of the most consequential judgment calls of the entire war, a delay that shaped the very ground on which the three-day battle would unfold. Buford continued leading cavalry operations through the fall of 1863, but his health, worn down by years of hard campaigning, began to fail. He died of typhoid fever in December 1863, promoted to Major General on his deathbed as a final honor for his service. Today, Buford is remembered not for a long career of battles, but for one morning of foresight, the cavalryman whose choice of ground helped determine the outcome of Gettysburg.
George Stoneman, the raider whose cavalry ran out of luck. George Stoneman Jr. was a Union cavalry commander whose career was defined by bold, high-risk raids deep into Confederate territory, campaigns that promised glory but often ended in costly failure. Born in 1822 in Busty, New York, Stoneman graduated from West Point in the same class as Stonewall Jackson, then spent years serving in cavalry and quartermaster roles on the western frontier before the Civil War thrust him into a very different kind of command. Stoneman rose to lead the Cavalry Corps of the Army of the Potomac, and in the spring of 1863, General Joseph Hooker tasked him with a daring raid deep behind Confederate lines ahead of the Battle of Chancellorsville, aimed to cutting Robert E. Lee's supply and communication lines. The raid, while bold in concept, moved too slowly and accomplished little of strategic value, leaving Hooker's main army without adequate cavalry support during the battle itself, a failure many historians point to as a contributing factor in the Union defeat at Chancellorsville. Stoneman later commanded cavalry in the Western Theater, leading another ambitious raid in 1864, aimed at freeing Union prisoners near Macon, Georgia. This raid, too, ended in disaster. Stoneman himself was captured by Confederate forces, becoming the highest-ranking Union officer taken prisoner during the entire war. He was later exchanged and returned to duty, leading a final destructive raid through southwestern Virginia and North Carolina in the war's closing months. After the war, Stoneman transitioned into politics, eventually serving as governor of California in the 1880s. Today, Stoneman is remembered as a general defined by ambition and audacity, a cavalry commander capable of daring strikes deep into enemy territory, yet forever shadowed by the raids that promised so much and delivered so little.
Alfred Pleasonton, the cavalry commander who clashed at Brandy Station. Alfred Pleasonton was the Union cavalry commander who transformed a once overlooked branch of the Army into a force capable of standing toe-to-toe with the legendary Confederate horsemen of J.E.B. Stuart. Born in 1824 in Washington, D.C., Pleasonton graduated from West Point and built a career in the pre-war Army, serving in the Mexican-American War and on frontier campaigns before rising to prominence once the Civil War began. By June 1863, Pleasonton commanded the Cavalry Corps of the Army of the Potomac, and he launched a surprise attack across the Rappahannock River at Brandy Station, igniting the largest cavalry battle ever fought on American soil. Though the engagement ended without a clear tactical victor, it marked a turning point in the war's cavalry conflict, proving for the first time that Union horsemen could match Stuart's Confederate cavalry in scale, skill, and sheer aggression, a psychological shift that boosted Union confidence heading into the Gettysburg campaign. Pleasonton's cavalry played a supporting role at Gettysburg itself, screening the Army's movements and skirmishing with Confederate forces in the days surrounding the battle.
He continued to lead Union cavalry operations through 1863, promoting rising officers like George Armstrong Custer and Wesley Merritt into key commands, decisions that would shape the cavalry corps for the rest of the war. Despite his role in modernizing Union cavalry tactics, Pleasonton was transferred to a lesser command in the Western Theater in 1864. His relationship with superiors like Ulysses S. Grant and Philip Sheridan often strained by clashes over strategy and credit. Today, Pleasonton is remembered as the general who proved Union cavalry could fight on equal terms with the Confederacy's finest horsemen, even if his own career never matched the lasting fame of the officers he helped promote.